Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Diane. I'm part of Share Screen Africa, and I'm based in Rwanda. And it is my greatest honor to be your host tonight. And this is our day one of a series that we are doing in partnership with Mweka University in Tanzania. And the theme of the series is Technology for Effective Biodiversity Conservation. Tonight, our first speaker theme is going to be focusing on how conservation tech boosts protection in the Northern Republic of Congo as a case study that we are going to be using. From the use of AI and machine learning to remote sensing, the GPS collars and different tech systems and innovation that I put in place that all help conservationists detect threats at an early stage, or help in monitoring wildlife animals at a more accurate rate, and make faster and data-driven decisions. But it has been come to review that technology also comes with some key challenges, either on data quality, capacity needs, cost, and the question of how to integrate these tools effectively into a real conservation work on the ground and the way technology can support our daily lives. For example, as you have, I'm sure within the room, all of us have phones that help us in our daily life, either tracking the weather, either tracking our movement, or even store the information, even predict some of the patterns. But now, if that same features could be merged in wildlife tracking elements or management and monitoring of gorillas, you can name all the wildlife animals. This can help us act at a right time and at fast and efficiency. So that is exactly what modern conservation can make possible tonight, or can make it possible in the real world. So without further ado, let me quickly introduce our speaker tonight, Dr. Victoria Estein. I apologize, Victoria, if I pronounce your second name wrongly, bear with me. So Dr. Victoria is a respected biologist and conservation professional with deep field experience. And she has spent 4 years directing the research and biomonitoring program of Ndoki-Likouala National Park in the Republic of Congo, one of Africa's most biodiverse forest landscape. And today she serves as the Conservation Impact Manager for Wildlife Conservation Society, Africa, leading the development of monitoring and evaluation systems that support protected areas project across the continent. Her background combines behavioral science research, advanced technology, and real-world conservation management. Without further ado, Dr. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Diane. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen now. My name is Victoria Estienne. I work for WCS African Protected Area Management Unit based in Kigali now, but I spent 4 years in the Northern Republic of Congo in the Ndoki-Likouala landscape. So this is what I will present you tonight. Some examples of how we apply the conservation technology for effective protected area management. Protected and conserved areas are the foundation of biodiversity conservation, and they are fundamental to safeguard natural and cultural resources that are the core of human livelihood and sustainable development. In fact, effectively managed systems are recognized as critical instruments in achieving biodiversity conservation goals under the Convention of Biological Diversity and Sustainable Development Goals. Effective management is a prominent concept in Goal 3 of the Global Biodiversity Framework, and this requires protected and conserved areas to use appropriate management systems, processes, governance framework, and resourcing, as well as monitoring for achieving positive outcomes for biodiversity. So effectiveness is generally defined as the degree to which we are able to successfully implement something that we have envisioned, that we have planned. And in the context of protected and conserved areas, therefore, this is the ability to demonstrate and deliver those positive and sustained long-term conservation outcomes that are the primary objective of conservation. To this end, the open conservation standards for the practice of conservation, or just simply conservation standards, provide us with like a framework that help us to design projects, manage projects, and monitor our interventions to implement and show effectiveness. These standards are developed by the Conservation Measure Partnership and updated together with the broader conservation community. So establishing and implementing a strong monitoring framework is fundamental to build the evidence that is needed to show effectiveness. Results chains, like this one very simplified one that I have presented here, explicitly show how the result of actions have an impact on intermediate results and threat reduction results, and ultimately on our conservation target. And so our monitoring frameworks would allow us to monitor how we are doing along the way to show our ultimate impact. Knowing the status of our conservation target is that long-term sustained change that we want to see to show that we're doing actually a good job in our conservation work. So wildlife population abundance, that is the number of animals for a given species of interest, is typically considered the gold standard for metrics for conservation success. This is due to several reasons. First is an easy metric to understand. It provides tangible numbers that we can use to show conservation success, something that everybody will understand. Specifically for a small population of animals, it also can directly inform how far these small populations are from local extinction. So it's also very important if we're working with small population, and it's one of the metrics that is used in the red list assessment, for example. More technically, it allows us to compare between different ecological conditions that vary in their degree of detection probability. And we can also use it as to directly compare different species. So what we typically want to see is something like this, where we have a long a time series. So for example, in this case, 3 years, we want to see how the density in an animal, in a species of interest, changes over time. And we can also see how multiple species and the trends for multiple species together. So after this brief introduction, I want to bring you to the Ndoki-Likouala landscape. It's an area in the Northern Republic of Congo, of lowland tropical forest. It's a conservation stronghold for several globally threatened large mammal species, such as forest elephants, great apes, and ungulates. And WCS has been working in this landscape since the early 90s. So throughout these 40 years, strong conservation partnership between WCS and the Congolese government, as well as communities and private sector partners that are active in the landscape, particularly logging concessions, have developed different management approaches in this landscape. So at the moment, we have one integrally protected national parks, Ndoki-Likouala Community Reserve, in partnership, that is managed in partnership with local communities, the Laktele Community Reserve. And then there are several logging concessions, most of them that are managed under an FSC framework, so sustainable logging, and one concession that is under traditional logging. And then there are some large areas of not managed units because they are occupied by swamps and peatland, and so they're not under active management. The WCS has carried out systematic landscape scale surveys approximately every 5 years in this landscape since the early 2000s, and with the main goal to understand how these different approaches to management of natural resources impact values. So those of elephants and great apes and ungulates that are at the core of our conservation efforts in this place. So as you can see in the map on the right, the landscape is really has very few villages and towns and a few roads, and is largely covered by forest and swamps. So WCS has used a smart survey since 2016 for data collection and data management of these large-scale landscape-wide survey data. We have used a standard model that has been standardized in SMART across Central Africa, and we use it for data collection in the field and data management and data storage. So the results of this survey inform us on the status of different animal populations. So these are the results comparing the results of the last survey that was carried out in 2022 with the one of the second last carried out in 2016 for elephants, for forest elephants only. And so we could show that the population overall across the whole landscape, the population of elephants was stable. And then we saw, for example, in the majority of the different management units, there was no change. We saw in one like a huge increase, for example, in the forest concession of Cabo, which is it's one of the forest concession that is managed under the FSC framework, so with the minimum impact of logging activities, and it's still very close to the protected area, to the national park. And we also could appreciate that the national park here, I hope you can see my mouse, there was no change in the elephant population within the national park, which is good, was a good result. Unfortunately, we have seen like a decrease in Pokola and Mokabi, also kind of unsurprising result in the sense that Pokola has is as a management unit as the forest concession has been increased a lot in infrastructures and human population in the last couple of years. So it wasn't surprising to see a decrease in elephant population in that sector of the landscape. And same for Mokabi, which is the traditionally managed logging concession. Collecting spatially explicit data also allows us to map the estimated densities across the landscape to visualize spatially the highest densities of elephants. And so you can see that there are higher densities of the elephants in this sector, that it's the Cabo Forest concession, as well as in the national park. This again is unsurprising because typically elephants like very much the secondary vegetation that grows after logging activities. So it's also unsurprising to see that there are high densities of elephants in relation to the rest of the landscape, close to the national park, but still in the forest concession. We can do, we have similar results for the great apes. So gorillas and so we have, unfortunately, we have detected a significant decline in great apes across the landscape. The swamps and the seasonally flooded forests are they showed the least decrease. So, for example, Lundungu swamps and Bailey swamps, they didn't show any significant decrease, suggesting maybe that these areas provide a refuge for the apes where human activities are not so prominent and the accessibility is very reduced. However, we observed like very big changes in other forest concession. Let's say that the good result was to see that the smallest declines were in a few concessions that are managed under the FSC framework and in the national park. So the national park and those few logging concessions that are sustainably managed, they seem to show like a smaller decline as compared to the rest of the landscape. And again, we can see where the highest densities of great apes are in our study area. The good thing of these landscape-wide surveys also that while collecting information on wildlife, the teams also collect information on human activities that could be potential threats to the wildlife. And so here you have different degrees of human activities, so different types of human activities that can be interpreted as different levels of threat for animals. So we have categorized them as non-hunting human activities, potentially hunting human activities, and like evident hunting signs. And so again, we can map these observations and see where there is a higher intensity of potentially threatening human activities, and then look at those in relation to where we see the highest densities of animals, and usually these things are one the opposite of the other. But this is a good data set that allows us to have a snapshot at the same time of wildlife population densities and threats. So with this example, what I wanted to show you was first that we use the SMART survey as a technological support to implement consistent and long-term data collection, management, and storage for the wildlife survey across a very large area. The whole landscape is 42,000 square kilometers. And that effective management has limited the wildlife decline and or maintained some species stable like the forest elephants. And so these are important conservation successes for for this landscape, especially considering the global decline in large mammals. However, tracking conservation targets, so wildlife population, is while it's the best possible metrics, but it's not. It's something that we can only do not so often, not so frequently, and because it's very costly. And it also requires a longer time to see changes because animal population might decline very slowly, and so it will take a while until we can show that our work has had any positive impact. So so it's also important for the short and medium term to show effectiveness in intermediate results and tract reduction results with other types of indicators. And I want to bring you a couple of examples again from Ndoki. So one is in relation to the human-elephant coexistence. So one of the problems that we had at the park was that there were too many elephants and people could not cultivate vegetables for their use. And so we piloted a study using an electric grid that you can see in the background, an electric fence. And then we used camera traps to see how the elephants responded to the fence, and to see if this was an effective method to protect the fields. And so you can see in the plot that since the beginning of the study in July 2019, we use the camera trap data to monitor the number of elephant visits in yellow and the number of times that the elephants challenged or touched the fence in purple. And so you can see that between 2019, the elephants really went to see the field and also challenged the fence, but very quickly, especially. So even if the number of visits kind of remained sometimes higher, decreased overall, but with some spikes. But the number of touches really decreased steadily until basically zero after a couple of years. And so then we used this result to show that the electric fence was indeed an effective method to protect the agricultural field at that site. And this led to the decision to expand this approach. So we then were able to find more funding to have to protect the larger fields, and also we showed that this approach was effective in this region, and other national NGOs also started to use this approach. And the second example is based on passive acoustic monitoring, so acoustic units that are working independently. It's a collaboration with the Elephant Listening Project at Cornell University. So since 2016, we have set up a systematic data collection of passive acoustic devices to record elephants and gunshots in the landscape between one of the logging concessions and the national park, as you can see in this map. And the goal of this project was to understand whether passive acoustic monitoring was an effective method to understand elephant presence in the landscape and illegal gunshot activity. So this led to very interesting results and very practical results. So in the short term, the park managers were able to see hunting activity in that part of the park and of the longing concession. So in these two images, you can see on the left the number of recorded gunshots at different stations in 2017 and in the time period 2017 and 2019. And then you can see how that changed in 2023. So there was like a strong reduction of incidents of gunshots recorded by the acoustic devices. And so that was like a way that the park management could see an effect of a change in the distribution or presence of hunting activities in the landscape. And then on the longer term, because this project is still ongoing, is a long-term effort, we were also able to understand better the drivers of hunting. So in the plot, you can see again on the y-axis the number of gunfire events per month recorded over 31 months between 2017 and 2020. And like the frequency of these gunshots as recorded by the acoustic grid. And this gray line is the patrol effort in kilometers, so it's like patrol data. And the area in gray here is like a time when the rangers were busy, were undergoing a professional training. It was the first real professional training that was implemented in that protected area. And so it was really interesting to see how when the training was happening and there were like less rangers around, there was a spike in gunshots events recorded, and then how the gunshots activities steadily decreased over time, and as the patrol effort remained kind of stable after the training. Very interestingly, the analysis showed that seemingly the stronger effect to explain the decrease in gunshots was actually linked to was explained by the training. So before there was a stronger effect of before and after training rather than the patrol effort. And so with these examples, I wanted to show that we can use other technological tools, like such as camera trapping and passive acoustic monitoring, to monitor and show reduction in threats and understanding the effectiveness of evaluate the effectiveness of conservation interventions, such as the electric fence. And most importantly, we can use that also to inform future decisions about development or investment, further investment in activities. So yeah, in summary, I hope that I convince you that effectiveness or protected area effectiveness can be evaluated through the monitoring of threat reduction results and the status of conservation targets, and I gave you some examples. And technological tools support the monitoring of these indicators to assess effectiveness. And that's all from me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victoria. And indeed, you did convince us. I really learned a lot, either from different smart system that you have implemented for monitoring, but also the use of camera traps in tracking elephants' movements, and observing the gunshots. And I think allow me to take the privilege to ask the first question as I announce to the audience. You be next. So get your question around in the chat box or raise your hand. That way I'll get to welcome you later. So Victor, when you were presenting to us about the use of camera traps in correcting data, I wanted to understand, I had a question in mind about how do you get to integrate the data you have been that has been corrected using different smart system that you implement or the camera traps, but with also what your guides on ground do give you. I think at the end of the day, they need to uh, cooperate for you to make the right decision. Do you get to consider even the data that has been corrected? How do you integrate for you to come up with a conclusion or to come up with the final data you just even shared with us on in your presentation?
Yes. So the camera trapping example that I've given here was very simple in the sense that it was monitoring the the behavior of elephants around an electric fence. And so there was only one team that was one person that was responsible for this study. In the beginning, was just a small pilot study, and so it was fairly simple to keep track and process the data. It was only a very small number of camera traps and like a manageable amount of images that was recorded. And so my colleague was tracking was coding the image, the behavior of elephants in the images, and yeah, and he was able to collect the data and analyze the data, and the data were coming quite regularly. So he was also able to inform park management directly about the effectiveness of these fence. But of course, the the final decision was supported by the overall like 2 years of data. So it's important also, I think, to remember that there is value in having some long-term data collection activities. We also used a camera trap in another in the wildlife survey that I presented. I didn't present the results of the camera trapping, but we also deployed the camera traps together with line transects during the wildlife survey, and that was much more challenging in terms of data management, and required a lot of coordination between different teams to put together the picture and to maintain together the data set. I don't know if this answers your question.
Yes, it does answer the question. Thank you, Victoria. And now let me quickly move to a question I'm seeing from Abdullahim. Abdullahim, if you can be able to unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Can I give more explanation on gunshots, hunting, monitoring on that chat? How you explain it?
Yes. You want more explanation on the gunshot monitoring? Yes. So maybe I can put maybe I can share again my screen, and I just shared that slide if it's fine. Yeah, so this one in green is our national park, and here in purple is our forest concession. So you see all these points. We set up these passive acoustic monitoring units that are these boxes that you see in the picture in the back, and these devices record autonomously 24/7 for 4 months. So we had continuous recording across all this area. And then our team process the audio files that are collected. And so like with a combination of manual validation and algorithm that detect automatically the gunshots, we were able then to obtain this kind of information. So we had the number of detected gunshots at each of the sampling stations. So every dot here is a acoustic unit, and you see where it's white, there is no detection, and the larger the red dot, the larger, the higher the amount of the number of gunfires events recorded. And so we could have a nice picture of where and when a gunfire event happened, because it's quite to be honest, it's quite intense data processing. So the team is very focused and very trained, highly skilled in processing this acoustic data. So this is how we monitor the gunshots.
And Victoria, allow me to take one more last question, since we have another speaker. The list we can have them in the chat. You can reply them all towards the end of this session. So another question is from Johann Kruger. I think he'll permit me to read it.
I know, yes, I think I found it. It's about the cost. Yes, so this is a good point. So in our in this specific case, with the collaboration with Cornell University, we basically had the highest cost for us was in batteries, so a lot of money in batteries. I think those units were also specifically designed to be performing well in the tropical rainforest, which poses some technical challenges that you will not have in more open areas or in savannas. I also think that probably in savanna you could also cut down your cost of batteries by using more solar energy. So I think that there must be relatively affordable solutions for savanna. To be honest, my work has been focused all the time in forest environments, so I know very little about savanna applications. But I think that the costs, you might have a higher cost in the beginning, and that will be then paid off over time, because you will be able to use the same equipment for a certain time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Rodolfo, can you quickly unmute yourself and ask your question? And I promise this is going to be the last.
Okay. Thank you for a nice presentation and the interesting one. So my question is that I would like to know whether the passive acoustic monitoring data were integrated into patrol and patrol operation for the rangers, and how sustainable is this in the entire management of the park after the listening elephant listening project.
Yes. So no, the data collection and data processing was entirely carried out by a dedicated team, because the setting up, the installation, the settings, and the maintenance of the acoustic units is very specialized, and so we didn't want to. Yeah, it wasn't very feasible for us to have rangers doing that, because of resource allocation, and in our system it worked better if we had a dedicated team. And then I think if I understood correctly, your second question is about how we integrate that in park management decisions. So I think like a big limitation that we have in forest is connectivity. So there is no phone reception, and even the canopy also prevents satellite communication from being really optimal. So we don't have a real-time detection of gunshots in that landscape, which of course was of high interest for applied operations in the field. So the park manager received those information after a cycle of data collection of 4 months. So this is this like they received the location and time and number of gunshots detected, but only 4 months later, basically. So this is of course like a big limitation to real time or short or quick reactive operations.
Thank you. And the next question is about electric fence, on how long the sample length of the fence, and was it done inside the protected area?
Yeah.
If yes, were there some cases of electrocution of wildlife?
Yes, no. So the electric fence was placed outside of the protected area. There are no villages inside the protected area, and there are the village where this was implemented is located in the logging concession of that logging concession southern from the protected area. So there was no. Yeah, it wasn't inside the protected area. There was no case of electrocution of wildlife. I think it depends on the settings of your electric fence, on the power of your electric fence. I also think that the elephants. There were a few technical smart things that were put in place by the team that envisioned that first pilot study that made it very good against the forest elephants or against those elephants. I also think it was a very small field, so elephants always had elephants and other wildlife, they always had other options to go around the fence without really the need to challenge it. So I think, but we had pictures of a lot of small carnivores, chimpanzees and gorillas going under the fence. So they didn't seem to be particularly, it wasn't strong enough to electrocute them. No.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Victoria. I really also do know, like monkeys, they do play with fences. So they're like human, they like discovering, and it's a good thing. And since time is not on our side, allow me to thank you, to pause for now so we can have the second speaker. And we are going to resume questions after the presentation from Mr. Tom. Thank you so much, Victoria, once again.
Thank you.